What's the worst thing a roommate can do? Leave dirty dishes in the sink? Play their music too loud? Forget to pay their share of the rent on time? We've all been there. We've all had those minor annoyances that make sharing a space a challenge. But what if it's more than that? What if the person you share your home with, the person who has a key to your front door, the person who sleeps just a few feet away from you, is not who they seem? What if the small annoyances slowly twist into something truly terrifying? The stories you are about to hear are not about bad habits. They are about the chilling reality that sometimes the monster isn't under your bed. They're on the other side of the wall. These are 3 disturbing, true roommate horror stories. Our first story comes from a college student named Chloe, who was just excited to move into her first off-campus apartment. She found a roommate online, a girl named Sarah who seemed perfect. They were the same age, had similar majors, and in their initial video calls, Sarah came across as bubbly, friendly, and responsible. The first month was great. They fell into a comfortable routine, sharing meals and complaining about their professors. But then, Chloe started to notice little things. It began with her clothes. A sweater she was sure she had left on her chair would be back in her closet, but folded differently. Then, her favorite mug, a gift from her grandmother, went missing from the kitchen cupboard, only to reappear a week later at the very back, behind things Chloe hadn't touched in ages. Sarah would just laugh it off, saying Chloe was probably just stressed and forgetful from all the studying. Chloe tried to believe her. It was easier than confronting the alternative. The situation escalated when Chloe started dating a guy from her history class named Ben. The first time Ben came over to the apartment, Sarah was overly friendly, almost performatively so. She asked him a barrage of questions about his family, his past relationships, where he grew up, all with a wide, unblinking smile. Ben later told Chloe that he found her roommate a little intense. Chloe, wanting to keep the peace, defended Sarah, saying she was just naturally curious. A week later, Chloe's laptop, which was password protected, had its background changed to a picture of her and Ben that had been taken on their first date. It was a selfie Ben had on his private, locked social media profile. When Chloe, her heart pounding, confronted Sarah, the girl just shrugged. She claimed she saw the picture and thought it was cute, and that she must have guessed Chloe's password because it was probably something obvious. Chloe's password was a random string of numbers and letters her dad, who worked in IT, had set for her. There was no way anyone could have guessed it. This was the turning point. The small, unsettling incidents now felt like part of a larger, more sinister pattern. This was quickly becoming one of the most creepy roommate experiences she had ever heard of. Chloe started to feel like she was under constant surveillance. When she would come home, she would find her diary, which she kept hidden under her mattress, slightly out of place. She never found it open, but she had the sickening feeling that it had been read. The climax came one Tuesday evening. Chloe had told Sarah she was going to the library to study for a big exam and would be back late. However, the study session was canceled, and Chloe came home early. As she quietly unlocked the front door, she heard voices coming from Sarah's room. She recognized Sarah's voice, and then she heard a man's voice. It was Ben. Confused and a little hurt that Ben would be hanging out with her roommate without her, she walked towards Sarah's slightly ajar door. What she saw made her blood run cold. Sarah was sitting on her bed, talking to a full-length mirror she had propped up against the wall. She was having a conversation, but she was playing both parts. First, in her own high-pitched, bubbly voice, and then she would lower her tone, imitating Ben's speech patterns perfectly, responding to herself. She was reenacting the conversation Chloe and Ben had in the kitchen just the night before, word for word. Sarah was not just a strange roommate. She was dangerously obsessed. Chloe didn't even go inside. She backed away slowly, her hand over her mouth to stifle a scream. She went to a friend's house, and the next day, with the help of her father and 2 of his friends, she moved all of her belongings out of the apartment. She never spoke to Sarah again, but she would occasionally see her on campus, watching her from a distance. Chloe had to get a restraining order and lived in constant fear for the rest of her college career. She learned the hard way that you can never truly know the person you're living with. Our second story is a chilling reminder of how easily a person can hide their true nature behind a mask of normalcy. It's one of those true roommate horror stories that you read about online, but you never think could happen to you or anyone you know. This story is about a young professional named Alex who needed a roommate for his 2-bedroom apartment in the city. He put an ad up, and a man named Marcus responded. Marcus was in his late 20s, well-dressed, and worked in finance. He seemed clean, respectful, and had excellent references. For the first few months, he was the model roommate. He was quiet, paid his rent on time, and was rarely even home, often claiming he was working late or traveling for business. Alex felt like he had hit the roommate jackpot. The two weren't close friends, but they had a polite, functional living arrangement. The first crack in Marcus's facade appeared one night when Alex came home from a late dinner with friends. He walked into the apartment and found Marcus in the living room, meticulously cleaning a set of what looked like antique surgical tools. They were laid out on a white towel on the coffee table. There were scalpels, forceps, and other instruments that Alex didn't recognize. When Marcus saw him, he didn't even flinch. He just looked up and said calmly, "It's a hobby. I collect medical antiques." It was a strange hobby, but Alex figured it was harmless enough and went to his room, trying to shake off the slightly unnerving image. A few weeks later, Alex's girlfriend, Jessica, was over. She went to use the bathroom and came out a few minutes later looking pale and shaken. She pulled Alex into his bedroom and told him that she had accidentally knocked over the trash can in the bathroom. Underneath a few tissues, she saw several discarded women's acrylic nails and a small lock of blonde hair tied with a red ribbon. Jessica was a brunette. Sarah, Alex's ex from over a year ago, was blonde. But these nails weren't hers. They were a different shape and color. Alex, now seriously disturbed, decided he needed to know more about Marcus. Waiting until he was sure Marcus was out for the day, Alex did something he never thought he would do. He went into his roommate's room. The room was as neat and impersonal as ever, except for one thing. Under the bed, he found a locked footlocker. Driven by a dreadful curiosity, Alex managed to pick the simple lock with a paperclip. Inside were dozens of what looked like personal trophies. There were driver's licenses belonging to several different women. There were wallets, pieces of jewelry, and several more locks of hair, all different colors, each tied with a red ribbon. But the most terrifying discovery was a collection of disposable cameras. Alex took one of them, his hands shaking, and went to a 1-hour photo developing store. What he saw in those pictures would haunt him for the rest of his life. They were photos of women, sleeping in their beds, completely unaware that they were being photographed. The angle of the photos was low, as if taken by someone hiding in their room. Alex recognized one of the women. It was a barista from a coffee shop a few blocks away. He had seen her just that morning. Alex immediately took the photos and the footlocker to the police. It turned out that Marcus was a fake name. His real name was Daniel, and he had a history of stalking and breaking and entering into other states. He wasn't working in finance. He was a meticulous and patient predator who used his seemingly normal appearance to get close to his victims. The police put out a warrant for his arrest, but by the time they got to the apartment, he was gone. He had cleared out all of his belongings, leaving no trace, just like he had probably done many times before. Alex had been living with a serial stalker and had no idea. Our final story is perhaps the most disturbing of them all, because it's not about stalking or obsession, but about a complete and terrifying psychological breakdown. It deals with a young woman named Maya, who moved in with a friend from work named Jessica. They were casual friends at the office, and when Maya's lease was up, Jessica offered her the spare room in her apartment. Maya thought it would be a perfect arrangement. For a while, it was. But Maya soon began to notice Jessica's strange habit of talking to herself. It wasn't just muttering under her breath. It was full-blown conversations. Maya would often hear her in her room, arguing with someone who wasn't there. When Maya gently brought it up, Jessica would get defensive and say she was just thinking out loud or practicing for a work presentation. Then came the gifts. Maya would come home to find strange objects left on her pillow. A dead bird, a single muddy shoe, a broken piece of a mirror. Each time, Jessica would claim to have no idea where they came from, and she would even seem frightened herself, suggesting maybe they had a squatter or someone was breaking in. She was so convincing that Maya actually started to believe her, and they even called the police, who found no signs of forced entry. The real terror began when Jessica started to claim she was seeing a figure in the apartment, a tall, shadowy man she called the Whisperer. She would describe him in vivid detail, saying he would stand in the corner of her room at night and tell her to do things. Maya was terrified, not of the supposed ghost, but of her roommate's deteriorating mental state. She tried to suggest that Jessica see a therapist, but this sent Jessica into a rage, accusing Maya of not believing her and of being one of them. One night, Maya woke up at around 3 a.m. to the sound of scratching. It was coming from right outside her bedroom door. Frozen in fear, she listened as the scratching continued for nearly an hour. Finally, mustering all her courage, she texted her friend to call the police and say there was an intruder in her apartment. When the police arrived and opened Maya's bedroom door, they found Jessica crouched on the floor, her fingernails bloody, having scratched deep gouges into the wooden door. In her other hand, she was clutching a kitchen knife. Jessica told the police that the Whisperer had told her that Maya was a demon and that she needed to be purifying. Jessica was taken into psychiatric care. Maya moved out that very same day. The most chilling part of this entire experience was that for months, Maya had been living with someone who was not just a roommate, but a person who had completely lost touch with reality and whose violent delusions were beginning to focus on her. It's a terrifying example of how even creepy roommate experiences can escalate into life-threatening situations. Sharing your personal space requires a leap of faith. You trust that the person you let into your home is safe, stable, and sane. But as these stories show, that trust can sometimes be horrifically misplaced. The line between a quirky roommate and a dangerous one can be terrifyingly thin. Thank you for watching these disturbing true stories. If you have a creepy roommate story of your own, share it in the comments below. We'd love to hear from you. And if you enjoyed this video and want to see more content like this, please don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. It really helps us out, and it ensures you won't miss our next dive into the dark and unexplained. Stay safe out there.